Hey friends, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tzadi Test, Daf 99 of Masechta Yevamos. We're almost up to 100. I think 100 is like a big, that's like a big milestone, I think. 100 is like a big milestone. You know, once we pass the 100 mark, you know, we just got to get to 122, you know. Yeah, I feel like passing the 100 mark is a big one. So we're getting close. We're getting really close. Friends, we got a lot to do today, kind of. We're going to learn two Mishnayos today. Friends, until the end of the parak, there's just like, I don't know, some like brain teasery kind of things. What do you want me to tell you? So we're going to start in Daf Tzadi Ches, Amud Beis, at the Mishnah, about 15 lines from the bottom. Chomesh Noshim, 5 women. Shenis Arvav Lodu saying that their babies got mixed up. So you have 5 women who gave birth to sons, to boys, and then all the boys got mixed up. You don't know whose kid is who. They're mamish. We don't know who the mothers are. So Igdilu Ta'aruvos, now these kids get older. V'nasu Noshim V'meisu. And they all got married and they all died as well. So now each of these women also have another child who they know is their child, right? So like each of these women have 2 children, have 2 boys. One who they know is theirs, the other one, they don't know what happened, got mixed up with the other ones. So now, the ones that are mixed up, they all get married. And one at a time, they start dying. So let's say, so the first one dies. So Arba'a chotzen le'achas ve'echad miyabim osa. So 4 of them have to do chalitza. And then the last one, if he wants, he could do yibum, you know, because miman afshach, right? Meaning, so what happened? The first one dies, and now he's got a widow. The widow, they don't have children, so the widow needs to do yibum or chalitza with the brother. The thing is that we have 5 brothers, meaning 5 brothers who we know who their mothers are. But the thing is, the kid that died, we don't know whose brother it is. He could be the brother of any of the 5. So what we say is, look, if the first 4 of them do chalitza, so then for the last guy, so he can of course do chalitza with the widow as well, or if he wants, he could marry her, because miman afshach. If this widow was married to his brother, so he's doing yibum. If he was married to one of the other brothers, meaning if she was married to the brother of one of the other ones, well, they already did chalitza, so there's no problem now. So the last one is just marrying her. So miman afshach, the last guy could either do yibum or chalitza. Okay. Hu vishlosha chotzin le'achas, and then if the second one of the unknown brothers dies, so then the one brother who did, you know, yibum, so he'll do chalitza this time around, and then 3 others will do chalitza as well, and then the remaining one, if he wants, can do yibum. And each time, right, if the next one dies, so then 2 of them that already did yibum are going to do chalitza this time, and then one of the remaining, right, the last of the remaining 3 can do yibum. And basically, as each of these boys die, so then one of the brothers is able to do yibum, and then after all of the 5 mixed up boys die, there's an opportunity for each of their brothers to have done yibum. What do you want me to tell you? Says the Gemara, "V'davka michalitz vado yabume, ava yabume bereishad lo, tikapogo b'yavam l'shuk." So the Gemara says, now when the Mishnah had said that, you know, let's say the first 4 do chalitza and then the last one can do yibum, it's davka that order, that the first 4 do chalitza. Meaning you can't have the first one do yibum and the rest of the 4 do chalitza, because at the time that he does yibum, right, if this widow was not married to his brother, was married to somebody else, well then she's a Yevamo who needs to do yibum, and she can't be marrying him right now. So davka, if he's going to do yibum, it has to be the last one after all the others have done chalitza, so that at that point, by process of elimination, either he is the brother of her widow, of her deceased husband, or he's not, but whoever was the brother already did chalitza anyways, so that's fine. Mai hu vishlosha chotzen la'achas. Now, the question is, why do we say that, you know, after the first time around, if one of them did yibum, so then the next time around he's going to do chalitza? Why can't one of them just do yibum with all of them, right? Meaning, the first brother dies, and then the last one to go can do yibum. why can't, when the second brother dies, why can't this, all the others do chalitza again, and this guy does yibum again? And why can't he be married to all 5 of the widows? So the answer is, to lotema, that you shouldn't say minhu chad lechulhu, to say that one, we don't want one of them doing yibum with all of them. Better that, each one of the brothers should have an opportunity to do yibum with one of the widows, because who knows? Probably the chances are very slim, but who knows? Maybe each brother did actually marry the widow of his brother, and in which case they actually did the mitzvah of yibum. So if one person does yibum with all 5 sisters, so obviously, he's only gonna be doing the mitzvah one of the times, and the other 4 is not yibum. But if each one does yibum, so then who knows? Maybe they magically got it right, and each one actually married his brother's widow, and they did the mitzvah of yibum. So may as well at least enable the possibility of that. Now, what would the chances of that be? Would that be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? What's that? 5 times 4 is 20, times 3 is 60, times 2 is 120. Maybe. Yeah, so is that like 1 in 120 chance? Sounds pretty slim. It's less than 1% chance. I had to do a factorial recently in computer programming. That was pretty cool. It was an interesting problem. Yeah, and I solved it with a factorial. It's funny when, usually in computer programming, you just have to use your brain. You don't really need to know math and that kind of stuff. But actually, I don't know. I bet if I knew math really well, maybe I'd be a better computer programmer, but also maybe not. Probably not, actually. But in this case, it's cool to know certain things about math. I mean, I don't know much about math, but I had heard about a factorial, and I was like, you know what? I think that's actually the solution to this problem. It was an interesting problem. Yeah, it had to do with an array of stuff, and you only want whatever. You have to figure out different possibilities. It's kind of like Yevamos. Basically, you don't want to do extra work, so you don't want to whatever. So it was removing one thing from the collection at a time, and then I would iterate over the others, and then I would remove that from the collection so that once that one was sorted, we didn't need to deal with it anymore vis-a-vis the others, and you only had to find the remaining combinations. And it was an interesting problem. Okay, let's go weiter. Well, I don't know if it was an interesting problem. Well, it was an interesting problem. I was happy with the solution too. Test pass. Seems to work. Let's go weiter. So, Miktasan A'u. Friends, this is a mess. Absolute mess. Absolute freaking mess. I'm not even going to try to explain this really. Miktasan Achin and Miktasan She'ein Achin. Oh my God. Now, the brothers, meaning the brothers who we know who their parents are. So, some of them are just whatever, the children of the mothers, whatever. But some of them are I don't know, half brothers with some of these unknown children, to the extent that you might actually have one of the brothers who we know who they are is essentially a brother only from the mother. Basically somebody who wouldn't be shaykh to yibum. And the thing is, we don't want that person doing yibum. So, I'm not going to go into how exactly this works out. It's a freaking mess your brain up. But Miksasan Achin and Miksasan Shein Achin. So if within the brothers who we know who their parents are, some of them have a relationship with one of the brothers who we don't know who it is, in that they share a right, Miksasan Achin and Miksasan Shein Achin, right? So Miktasan Achin, Miktasan She'ein Achin. If some of them are brothers, some of them aren't brothers. Achin Choltzim She'ein Achin Min Yabim. So the ones who are brothers do Chalitza, the ones who aren't brothers do Yibam. Now, my comment, what does that mean? So Amr of Safra, so it says of Safra Achin comment, this is what it means. Miktasan Achin Min Ha'av. So if some of the brothers who we know who they are have a relationship with one of the brothers who we don't know who it is, in that they share a father, Miktasan Achin Min Ha'aim, but you also have one of the brothers who we know who they are, is only related to one of the brothers who we don't know who they are, in that they share a mother, well then, Achin min ha'em choltzin, so that brother who is related to one of the brothers who we don't know who it is that brother who has a brother who's mixed up, who is only a brother via the mother. Now, Yibum and Chalitza doesn't apply to a brother from a mother, only to a brother from a father. So he has to dafka do Chalitza. He can't do Yibum. But, any of the brothers that share a father with the mixed up brothers can do Yibum. Now, if, there's a brother who we know who it is, who's a Kohen, so then Kohanim Chotzin, the Kohen should do Chalitza, She'en Kohanim Yabim, the ones who aren't Kohanim can do Yibum, right? Because if it's a Kohen and then other people are doing Chalitza, right? Because everyone's got to do Chalitza also, so Kohen can't marry a Chalitza. Miktasan Kohanim, Miktasan Achin Mina'im, if you have some of them who are Kohanim, who can't, do Yibum in this situation, and some of them who are a brother from the mother, so who also can't do Yibum, so Eilu Veilu Chotzim V'Lo Miyabim, so they dafka do Chalitza, they don't do Yibum. Alright, friends, what do I want to tell you? We gotta go weiter. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Yesh Cholitz L'imo misafik, L'chosu misafik, Levito misafik. Friends, it's like, just took a brain teaser. It's not, this isn't so bad, but it's just technical random cases. So you have situations where you might have to do Chalitza with your mother, or with your sister, or with your daughter. Okay? Ketzad, how is that? So here's the first case where you're going to have to do Chalitza with your mother. Imo v'isha acheres v'lo shnei zcharim. So, Sarah and Rivka, they're not sisters or anything, but Sarah and Rivka, they're mothers. And they each have a yingel. Sarah's got a yingel, Rivka's got a yingel. V'chazu v'yaldu shnei zcharim b'machbeh. But then they each have a second yingel. But the thing is, those yingles get mixed up. So Sarah has two yingles, and Rivka has two yingles, but one of their yingles got mixed up with the other. So one of the yingles, we're not sure who the mother is. Is it Sarah or is it Rivka? Uvabina shel zo v'nasa imo shel zeh. Uvina shel zo v'nasa imo shel zeh. And then what happens is so Sarah's yingel, who we know that we need the one who isn't mixed up. So Sarah's yingel marries Rivka, and then Rivka's yingel, who she knows is her yingel, not the Suffolk one, marries Sarah, right? Meaning, so Sarah's yingel marries Rivka, Rivka's yingel marries Sarah. V'mesu b'lo banim, and then the two yingles die without children. So now, they have to do Yibum with, their spouse's brother. The thing is, we don't know who the spouse's brother is. So each one of them, so zecholitz l'shteim v'zecholitz l'shteim. So each of these two kids now, because we have a situation, one of them, they both have to do Yibum or Chalitza, they just don't know which one is, but they're just not sure which one is the brother of the one who died, because they got mixed up. So they both have to do Chalitza with both of them, including their mother. Right? Meaning both of the mixed up yingles have to do Chalitza with both mothers, even though one of them is going to be their own mother, but they just don't know which one is their mother. So they have to do Chalitza with both of them, even though they're going to end up doing Chalitza with their mom. Okay, moving on. Nimtza kol echad ve'echad cholitz l'imo misafik. So each one of these mixed up yingles is going to do Chalitza with his mother out of Suffolk. Lachosu misafik ketzad. What's the case where you're going to end up doing Chalitza with your sister out of a Suffolk? So, imo ve'isha acheres, if you have Sarah and Rivka, sheyaldu shtei nekevis, they have two midals. Rivka gives birth to a midal, Sarah gives birth to a midal, Rivka gives birth to a midal b'machbe, in hiding, and they get mixed up. Okay. So Sarah and Rivka give birth to a midal, each give birth to a midal, and the midals get mixed up, so we don't know who's the mother of who. Now, Sarah and Rivka also have sons, and they know who their sons are, right? So Sarah's got a son, she knows who it is. Rivka's got a son, she knows who he is. Uvau achein shelo me'oso ha'em. And now comes a brother from a different mother, but who shares the same father with each of the, who shares the same father with those brothers. And then they got married and they died without children, right? So basically, Sarah has a yingel and a midel. Now, Sarah's yingel also has another brother, but who has a different mother, but the same father. And the same thing with Rivka. Now, that brother from the same father, but a different mother, marries the daughter, the midel, and then dies. Now, the thing is, we don't know which midel is the sister. So these two brothers from Sarah and Rivka need to do chalitza with both of the midels, both of the girls, because they were not sure which one is their sister, or really which one is the one who was married to his brother. So therefore you have to do, you gotta do chalitza out of suffix. Alright? So below banim cholitz l'shtein, so the brother needs to do chalitza with both of them, and because we don't know who is married to who, and we don't know, if you have to do chalitza or whatever. So nimtza cholitz lachos misafik, so he ends up, because he's doing chalitza with both of them, so he ends up doing chalitza with his sister. Memele. Levito misafik, how do you end up doing chalitza with your daughter out of safik? Ketzad, how is this? Ishto v'isha acheres sheyoldu shtei nekevos b'machbei. So his wife and another woman, right? His wife is Sarah, and another woman Rivka. They give birth to two midels, and they get mixed up. Vo achein v'nisaum, and then their brothers, right? Meaning the brothers of the mothers married the daughters, right? They married their nephews, their nieces, right? So meaning you have Reuven's married to Sarah. Sarah gives birth to a midel. Same thing happens with Rivka, right? Rivka is married to Shimon, and they give birth to a midel, and the midels get mixed up. Now Reuven's brother and Shimon's brother come along, and they each marry one of the midels, and then they die without children. So now Reuven and Shimon need to do yibum, but they don't know, right? But they're not exactly sure which one is their daughter, right? So we don't know if Reuven's brother married his daughter or married this other girl. So therefore, if it's the other girl, then he has to do chalitza. If it's his own daughter, obviously he doesn't, but we don't know. So therefore, he has to do chalitza with both of them. So meaning, right? So Reuven has to do chalitza with whoever his brother married, but that it might end up being his daughter. Right? We don't know. So he may have ended up doing chalitza with his daughter. So, okay, it's possible that each father will end up doing chalitza with his daughter out of doubt. Okay, moving on. Tanya Reb Meir would say, Ish v'isha payim shemalidin chomish umis. Okay, says Reb Meir, you can have a situation where you have a man and a woman, and they can give birth to 5 children, and each one is like a different nation. Keitzad, no, what is this? Well, if you have a yid who buys a slave and a slave woman from the a slave man and a slave woman from the slave market, and this couple, the slave man and slave woman couple, they have 2 kids who the Yisrael did not buy, so they're free. So now one of them converts to Judaism. Okay. So we see that, okay, this couple has 2 kids. One of them is a convert to Judaism, and the other one is an Ovid Kochavim, right? He didn't convert to Judaism and is not a slave, is Ovid Kochavim. Hidbilam l'shem avdus. Now, the slave man and the slave woman go to the mikvah to become slaves, Canaanite slaves. V'nizkeku zelazeh, and then they have a baby. Harekan ger ve'oved kochavim ve'eved. So now in addition to the convert and the oved kochavim, there's also now a eved, right? The baby is an eved. Shichar es hashifcha uva aleh ha'eved. Now if the Yisrael, the Yid, frees the slave woman, and then the slave man sleeps with her now that she's a Jew, so Arekan ger ve'oved kochavim ve'eved u'mamzer. So in addition to the proselyte, the idolater, the slave, we now also have a mamzer from an oved kochavim and a ger. Okay, oved kochavim and Yisrael. Shichrer shneim, if he frees both of them, right, both the slave man and the slave woman, he see v'yisian zelazeh, and they get married. Hare kan ger ve'oved kochavim ve'eved u'mamzer v'Yisrael. So in addition to the proselyte, the idolater, the servant, the slave, the mamzer, there's now also a Yisrael. My kamash malon, what's the chiddush over here? Oved kochavim ve'eved haba bas Yisrael avlad mamzer. The chiddush is that we're saying, like the opinion here, that if you have an oved kochavim or an eved who sleeps with a bas Yisrael, so the child is a mamzer, right? Because we said that if you have the eved, right, the slave man sleeps with his with this freed slave woman, so the child is a mamzer. So it's like the opinion that says, and oved kochavim ve'eved haba bas Yisrael, the child is a mamzer. Tana Rabbanon. And the rabbis taught, Yesh mocher es ovev lahagbos imo ksubaso. Okay, you can have a situation where you have a son selling his father in order to pay for his mother's ksuba. Ketzad, what does this mean? Yisrael lakach eved v'shifcha min hashuk. That if Yisrael purchases an eved and a shifcha, right, a slave man and a slave woman from the slave market, v'loim ben, and they have a child, v'shichrer es hashifcha v'nosa, and then the Yid frees the slave woman and marries her. V'omad v'chosav konochosav livna, and the Yid wrote off all of his property to the son of the slave woman who he just married. Nimtza zemoches av lagbos limo ksubasa. If he now dies, if the Yisrael now dies, he sold away, wrote away all of his property, everything he owns, to the son of this freed slave woman, well then, in order to pay for the ksube of his mother, he'll sell his father, who's a slave and is the property of the Yisrael, but it was written over to this son, so he'll end up selling his father to use the money to pay for his mother's ksube. My kamash malon, what's it coming to teach us? Cooler of Merihi va'avde metaltale mishtabde lichsube. So, well, what we're saying is that it's all Reb Meir, and we're saying that an eved, a slave, is considered like metaltlin, movable property. And metaltlin mishtabde lichsube, and the chiddush is that metaltlin, even movable property, sort of are subject to the ksube, and that's why he sold his father, who's movable property, to pay his mother's ksuba. Or maybe what it's saying is that no, a movable property is not subject to the ksube, but a slave is not considered movable property. It's considered like karka, and that is why this child sells his father in order to pay for his mother's ksuba. New Mishnah, Isha shenesari vlada bevlad kalaso. So if you have a woman and her child gets mixed up with her daughter-in-law's child, i.e. with her grandchild, okay, shenesari vlada bevlad kalaso, igdilu ataruvos, and now these two mixed up children grow up, v'nosu noshim v'mesu, and they get married, and then their husbands die. So bnei hakala cholzin v'lo miyabmin. So basically, here's the situation, right? So we have these two girls. What? No, two boys. No, I'm sorry, two boys, right? So you have this mother and her daughter-in-law give birth to boys, and now the boys get mixed up with each other. So we don't know who's is whose, right? Which one is the daughter of the mother, which is the daughter of the daughter-in-law. Okay. So they grow up and they get married and they both die without any children. So now the thing is, so we have to do Yibum or Chalitza, right? So now the problem is we don't know who the brothers are, right? Are the brothers, right? If it's are the brothers of the daughter-in-law, or are we looking at the brothers of the mother? So the thing is, so now we have to think about it. What's at stake over here? So, let's say the first brother dies, right? And now you have to do Yibum. So it depends. If it's the daughter of the, so let's say, the sons of the daughter-in-law. So what's at stake over here? Well, if the brother that died was their brother, okay, so they're doing Yibum. But if who died was the son of their grandmother, I guess. So it's basically their father's brother, and they can't marry their father's brother. So that's going to be a problem. So they have to do Chalitza. Whereas the sons of the mother, so what's at stake? So if the one that died was their brother, so they're doing Yibum. But if the one that died was their brother's daughter, was their brother's son, so you can do this. They could do they can marry the wife of their brother's son. That would be okay. So v'nosu noshim, so v'mesu b'nei akala choltzim v'lo miyabmin. So the sons of the daughter-in-law have to do chalitza. They cannot do yibum. Show safek eishes achiv. Because on the one hand, if the brother that died was their brother, so then, okay, that's fine, they could do Yibum, but Safek Eishes Achi of it. But it might also be the wife of their father's brother, which would be a problem. But the sons of the grandmother, right, of the mother-in-law, they could either do Chalitza or Yibum, up to them. Shesafek Eishes Achiv, because either the one who died was their brother, in which case they could do Yibum, the Eishes Ben Achiv, or maybe it was the wife of the son of their brother, which would be okay. Mesu Aksherim. Now, what if it was the other way around? What if, right? What if there was like only one other brother, right? So, right, meaning so the grandmother had a son who she knows who it is, and also a son that got mixed up. And the daughter-in-law has a son who she knows who it is, and a son that got mixed up. And what happens if the ones who we know who they are die, but the question is, we don't know who should be doing Yibum or Chalitza. So where am I? So okay, where am I? Mesu Aksherim. So if the sons who we know who they are die, well, Hata'aruvis livnei hazikena choltzin v'lo miyabmin. So for the daughter, for the son of the grandmother who died, well then so then they would each have to do chalitza, because we're not sure which one is the brother, right? So they both have to do, something. Now, one of them cannot do yibum because, let's think, either it's their brother that died, which would be fine, but it might also be their father's brother's wife, which would be a problem, right? Right? So livnei azkena choltzim v'lo miyabmin shu safek eishes achiv. So either it's the wife of his brother, which would be okay, but ve'eishes achi of it. But it could also be the wife of the brother of his father, which would be a problem. But for the son of the daughter-in-law who died, so then one does chalitza, but the other one could do yibum, because either it's his brother's wife who died, or it's his brother's son's wife who died. But either way, it would be okay. Okay, fine. Kohenis is Arif Vladu B'Vlad Shivchasu. So let's say you have a Kohenis, and she also has a slave woman, and the Kohenis' daughter gets mixed up with with the daughter of a slave woman. So we're not sure we don't know who's a Kohen and who's a slave. So both of these mixed up kids can eat truma because the slave of a Kohen as well as the Kohen, a child who is a Kohen, can eat truma. And they can chaperein one portion in the granary. If they go to collect truma, they can chaperein one portion. They cannot become tamei to mason, because a Kohen is not allowed to become tamei to mason. But they cannot get married at all. They can't marry anybody, because a slave cannot marry Yisrael, and and Yisrael cannot marry a slave. Fine. Igdilu ta'aruvos, if they now got older, v'shichuru zeh, and then they free each other to make sure that their mom is both free. So nosin noshim ru'uyus lechuna. So they can marry women who would be able to marry Kohanim, because one of them is a Kohen. We just don't know which one. Ve'enun mitam the mason, they cannot become tamei to mason, to corpses, because they're both Kohanim, we don't know which one. But if they do get tamei, we don't give them lashes. And they do not eat truma, because we don't know which one is the slave, right? Which one is the freed slave and which one is the Kohen. If they do eat truma by accident, they don't have to pay back the extra fifth. And they do not divide up at the granary, right? They don't go to the granary to chaperein stuff. And they sell any truma that they have, and they can keep the proceeds. They don't chaperein, shlamim and kodshim and things like that, because we don't know which one's the slave. We don't give them kodshim, such as like a bechor. But if they have a bechor, we don't force them to get rid of it. We're going to see in a minute what we do with it. They don't need to give the leg, the jaw, and the stomach to a Kohen, right? Generally, when you slaughter an animal, so then you give the leg, the calf, and the stomach to a Kohen, but they don't have to do that, because one of them is a Kohen. We're just not sure which one. And in both of their cases, we said that they don't have to give away a bechor, so they could just let it graze until it gets a blemish, and then they can eat it. We place upon them the stringencies of the priests as well as the stringencies of the Israelites. Alright, Gemara is going to explain what that means. Alright. Gemara says the Gemara, okay, fine. So we had talked about in a situation where you have the mother and the daughter-in-law, and they have children, they get mixed up, and then we said, so if they die, so then what do the other brothers do? We also said if the ksherim die, and the ksherim was referring to the children who we know where they are. So, elahanach mishum di'aravlu avlu psulin, what? But the other ones, just because they got mixed up, they're puzzle. So Amar Papa emo mesim abadoid. Says Amar Papa, no, say that the certain ones died, the ones who we know who they are for certain, as opposed to the ones who we are not sure who they are. Livnei akala echad choletz v'chulei. So we said that for the daughter of, right, meaning if the son of the daughter-in-law died, so then these two mixed up kids, so one of them does yibum, one of them does chalitza, the other one does yibum. Davka michalitz v'adu yabume. Davka, we need one to first do chalitza, and only then can the other one do yibum. Hava yabume b'rei shelo dekapago v'yisham b'vam l'shuk. But the first one cannot do yibum because it risks, sleeping with someone who is not actually the widow of his brother, and he's sleeping with somebody who needs to do yibum. Okay, so we said that if you have a situation where the child of a kohenes gets mixed together with the child of a slave woman, and we don't know which one's the slave and which one is the kohen, chelek echad, so it says that they can chaperein one portion. Pshita atzabis ema chelek ke'echad. No, so I'll say that they can chaperein one portion when they come together. Tnan k'manta Omar in chokin truma le'eved elim ken rabu imo. And this is the opinion who says that we can only give truma to a slave if his master is with him. And therefore, in this case, they have to both come together, because only in that way would we know, right? Because if only one of them would go there, then it might be the slave, and the slave cannot chapara and truma on his own. The Tanya is one of the Brayos in Chokin Truma le'eved and can Rabbi Imo div Rabbi Yehuda. It says Rabbi Yehuda that we can only apportion truma to a slave if his master is with him. Rabbi Yossi Omer Yochol sheyomar im kohen ani tnuli b'shvil atzmi. Rabbi Yossi says no, he can go by himself and say, look, if I'm a kohen, give it to me on my own account. V'im eved kohen ani, and if I'm the slave of a kohen, well then tnuli b'shvil Rabbi, give it to me on account of my master. I.e., Rabbi Yossi doesn't have a problem with a slave going to collect truma, because of course the slave of a kohen is allowed to eat truma. Now the reason why Rabbi Yehuda was makbid to say that a slave of a kohen cannot go and collect truma, because where Rabbi Yehuda lived, where did Rabbi Yehuda live? Maybe in Yavne? But anyways, Rabbi Yehuda, or maybe Tiberia? I don't know. But Rabbi Yehuda, where he was, they would assume that if you're collecting truma, then that means that you are a kohen. And therefore, if this slave, who is not a kohen, would collect truma, we might think that he's a kohen. So therefore Rabbi Yehuda says that a slave can only collect truma in the presence of his master. And where Rabbi Yossi lived, which, of course, he got exiled, at least at Tzipori, so then there, just because you collected truma, we wouldn't assume that you are a kohen, and therefore a slave of a kohen can collect truma, because we're not going to draw any conclusions anyways, and he's allowed to eat truma. Tanya Omer Belazar Reb Tzadok miyomedei adti ele edus echad, says Reb Elazar Reb Tzadok that in his days he only gave one piece of testimony, velu eved lechuna alpi, and on account of that testimony that I gave, they treated a slave as if he was a kohen. What do you mean that they treated a slave as if he was a kohen? Even the animals of the righteous, the Eibishter does not bring any unfortunate situation on account of them. As we learned about in Masechta Shkolim, about the donkey of Pinchas ben Yair, you wouldn't eat any untied foods. So tzaddikim atzmon lo kol sheken, certainly the righteous themselves, nothing negative should happen on their account. So then, how could it be that Elazar ben Tzadok, on account of what he said, a slave was considered to be a kohen? Rather, no, what he's saying is that they were going to conclude that a slave was actually a kohen. Because what happened was, Elazar ben Tzadok saw in where Rabbi Yossi lived that a certain slave was collecting truma. Now, where Rabbi Yossi lived, they didn't assume that just because you were collecting truma, you were a kohen. But he then went and testified about what he saw where Rabbi Yehuda lived, and where Rabbi Yehuda lived, they would assume that if you collect truma, you are a kohen, and that is what it means that they were about to assume that this slave was actually a kohen, even though it was not really the case. There are 10 people that we do not apportion truma to in the granary. These are the 10. A deaf fellow, a shota, and a foolish fellow, a kohen, a young fellow, tumtum vandroginus, va'eved, and a slave, va'isha, a woman, va'arel, and an uncircumcised fellow, va'atome, and a impure fellow, v'nose isha shena ogeneslo, and a kohen who was married to a woman who he's not allowed to be married to. V'chulun mishagrin loyim livatem. Now all of them, oh, you guys hear that? The Shabbos bells ringing. And all of them, we could send them to their houses, chutz mitami v'nose isha shena ogeneslo, with the exception of a tummy fellow and a fellow who's not a kohen who's not allowed to marry the person who we married. Now, now I understand why we cannot give truma to a cheresh shot of a kohen, because they don't have das. We can't give they don't have right, and therefore we don't want to give truma to somebody who doesn't have das. I don't know, intuition. Tumtum v'androginus nami b'rei b'fnei atzma. No, I understand why we don't give truma to a tumtum or an androgynous, because they're like their own thing. Eved nami domasi la'asuke mitruma liyuchsin. I understand why we don't give to slaves, because maybe we might conclude that they are a kohen, Aril v'tamei mishum demi'isei. An uncircumcised fellow and a tamei, an impure fellow, are disgusting. No seisha sheno ogenes lo mishum knosa. And I understand why, if you have a kohen who's married to a woman he's not allowed to be married to, why we don't give him truma, because as a fine. Ela isha, my time alone, why can't we give truma to a woman? Think about a papa for Funa Breder of Yeshua, Chad Omer Mishum Grusha, Chad Omer Mishum Yichud. One of them is concerned about a divorcee, the other one is concerned about Yichud, right? One of them is concerned that if we give truma to this woman when she's married, a Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, well then if they get divorced, they may continue giving her truma even though she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. The other opinion is that we're concerned about Yichud, about that if she's going to collect truma, so then she might be secluded with a man, and they don't want that. My benayu, what would be the nafkamina between these two options? Ike benayu beidare demikariv limata velo shchichibu inche. Well, one nafkamina would be if you have a granary that's close to the city, so everybody knows her, and therefore if she gets divorced, they would know. But there aren't many people there, so we don't have to be concerned about grusha, but we do have to be concerned about yichud. Alternatively, if it's further away, so the people don't know her, so we have to be concerned about divorce, but we don't have to be concerned about yichud because there's a lot of people who go to this place. Okay, well, that was daf Tzadi Tes of Masechta Yevamos. The first part we just kind of talked about kind of brain teasery kind of things, and the second part also we talked about different people, different babies that are getting mixed up with each other, and different possibilities of who could do yibum with who, or who could do what. Alright, well that was daf Tzadi Tes of Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.